Hello, hello. Welcome back to Let's Talk Entertainment News. How would you like to live in a creepy old house that inspired an H.P. Lovecraft short story? Well, you can't because it was just sold for $1.8 million. Yes, the historic Providence home and setting for the Shunned House sells for $1.8 million. If you are new to the channel, I'll just tell you that in the past, I read and reviewed each and every short story written by the late great Ray Bradbury, including the lesser known tales where he was only just like a ghostwriter or a revisionist or an editor, and everything that he touched I reviewed here on this channel. But we're going to talk about this sale because, quite frankly, I had no idea that the house existed. That's pretty cool that people can live in or at least own a part of Lovecraft history. Before we do that, just a quick reminder, if you're going to show up in the comment section, just be kind. That's the only rule we ask. The world is a mean, nasty place, and there's no reason why we need to be mean and nasty to each other, but there it is. All right then, historic Providence home and setting for the Shunned House sells for $1.8 million. Constructed in 1764, a single-family home with a famed literary connection on the east side of Providence recently sold for $1.8 million, according to Compass Incorporated, which represented both sides of the transaction. The 135 Bennett Street home, known as the John Mawney House, contains 4 bedrooms, 2 full bathrooms, and 1 half bathroom. And yes, there's a better look at the house. Yeah, I mean, pretty standard house. Actually, looks like a few houses around here in northeastern Pennsylvania. The John Mawney House is also known as the Shunned House, according to the Guide to Providence Architecture, published by the Providence Preservation Society. That's due to the home's connection to a famous story by author H.P. Lovecraft. The overhanging gable house exploits the steep topography of the site by turning the principal elevation toward the south and creating a street-level entrance to the basement. This may have allowed the original owner, a physician, to use the lowest level of his house, and that's like right into the heart of the creepiness of Lovecraft. There's always an old doctor owns a house. The basement, however, achieved far greater fame as the setting of the evil presence of H.P. Lovecraft's 1927 story, The Shunned House, which had a creature under the basement floor that had to be gotten out with a flamethrower and some acid. Compass said the property was once the residence of Lovecraft's aunt, and that's how it served as the inspiration for this famous story. To be part of its next chapter is a privilege I won't soon forget, said Kira Green, founding agent of the Compass Providence House office, who represented the seller and facilitated the buyer in this transaction. The property bears a plaque from the Providence Preservation Society, the nonprofit called the property the earliest remaining house built on Benefit Street. Yeah, and then a lot of this isn't all that interesting. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to kick this video on over to my old review of the Shunned House, because quite frankly, I've forgotten a lot about the story and I need to do a refresher myself. But the whole point of doing this story is because it is a connection to H.P. Lovecraft. I find it interesting when there's literary connections, real life connections to fictional stories. And for that reason, in my own writing, I've been attempting to, or endeavoring at least to, mention places around the area where I lived and where I grew up, because I think that might, not that anyone's ever going to read it, but perchance that someone does read it and my stories last the decades, perhaps someone will be able to follow the footprints, the breadcrumbs of the world that I live in today. But who knows? But yes, so enjoy this encore presentation of my old review of the Shunned House. And until next time, keep it creepy. Yes, I can't speak today. Sorry. Hello, hello. Welcome back to Let's Talk H.P. Lovecraft and Let's Talk Short Fiction. Today, doing another H.P. Lovecraft short story review in the form of The Shunned House, written 1924, published October 1937 in Weird Tales. So what we have here is sort of a Lovecraftian take on the haunted house tale. The narrator of this story, he inherits an interest in a strange old house in his town. He inherits this interest in this house from his uncle, Dr. Whipple, who has spent many years collecting information on the disturbing events surrounding the property. The narrator, he reads through his uncle's files, and he learns that the house was built in the 1760s by the Harris family, and that the lane was previously a graveyard, but, that's a red herring. Yes, house is built on a graveyard. But it seems like the graveyard was legitimately removed, so it wasn't like there was any sort of desecration going on, and the property should have been clean. But as soon as the Harris family moved into their new house, they started dying. The first child born in the house was born stillborn. Members of the family grew sickly and died or became sort of raving mad. A number of the waiting staff, the serving staff, exhibited symptoms of this craziness, this madness, and even at times were said to have been found raving mad in the French language, which they could not have known apparently. But by the 1900s, the house is known for being this scary, dank, fungal, sickly smelling property that is no longer fit for rental or even occupation. The narrator, he renews his uncle's research and learns that the property has an even deeper past than the 1760s when the house was built. Apparently in the 1600s, a family of French Huguenots migrated into the area. And this family was the Roulets. They were connected to a man who in 1598 in France was associated with a grisly child murder that was said to have possibly involved lycanthropy or maybe vampirism. And we come to learn that possibly the locals heard about this connection, and being in the 1600s and a very religiously strict time, also a time that concerns about witchcraft were rampant. Some sort of riot took place. Possibly this family was killed and nearly erased from the history books. However, apparently this house, which was formerly a graveyard, actually contained more graves, the graves of this family who were buried on their property. So the narrator, he's determined to bring this horror to an end. He and his uncle, who is now in his 80s, they sort of organize a ghost-busting camp-out in the basement of the house. They plan on using an electrical device and flamethrowers to take on a vaporous, sickly yellow entity. But the uncle ends up dying. He gets possessed by this being, and he basically melts into a pool of green goo and is absorbed into the basement floor. The narrator, when he regains his senses, he comes back with a pickaxe, a shovel, and several carboys full of sulfuric acid. He digs a pit, he finds a monstrously oversized body, and he pours the acid in and destroys the corpse. The vapor rises out of the building for the last time, and afterwards the house is said to be wholesome. The dead grass in the lawn begins to grow again. The apple tree in the yard suddenly bears fruit. And as the saying goes in the movie Poltergeist, this house is clean. So it's a neat little ghost story, haunted house story, but it contains also allusions to things like the witch trials that sort of swept New England, as well as references to vampire myths and werewolf myths out of France, and religious persecution, and all these different elements sort of come together to create a shockingly good ghost story. It's interesting how he blends all these elements together with even a little bit of sort of quasi like steampunk elements as well. For instance, they try to use an electrical device to rid the house of this spirit, which means they have already made this connection between electrical currents and these entities. So it was just a lot of really interesting themes that now I think are quite common in horror stories, but somehow Lovecraft managed to stumble upon all of them and sort of shove them all into a story that is, it does so much background work as far as laying out the history and the lineage of this family, before even going deeper into the history of the families that were there before. And it just, in a space of like 20 pages, he manages to create this very convincing landscape to tell a horror story in. And one of the better Lovecraft stories that I've read recently. Alright guys, so highly recommend this one. Take you about an hour and 20 minutes if you do the audiobook version, which I did, while reading along from the complete fiction of H.P. Lovecraft, which I'm working my way through here on Let's Talk H.P. Lovecraft. Alright, so I would give this story a chance if you have the opportunity to read it. And if you have not done so already, please subscribe, because I'm doing these H.P. Lovecraft reviews and analysis every few days here on Let's Talk. So until next time, keep it creepy.